just get right into it. Anyway, I think one of the bigger things you need to talk about here is we had this huge discussion with the NBA, right? And it's, does parity matter? We had this discussion the last couple of years. It's like, do we really just want to keep seeing the Warriors and Cavaliers, mostly the Warriors and LeBron James, going to the finals year after year after year? Like, is that good for the league? And what I normally found most people would kind of derive is either said, no, it's not good for the league, or like they were like not, like they were adamant, right? Like they were adamantly, this is bad for the league. And they're like, you just can't always have the same two guys that are in there. Then, you make it hard on other fan bases and make other fan bases not want to contribute and make other teams not want to try as hard because they know they can't. And you almost encourage this tanking mentality. And then you have the other side that's like, yeah, but who really wants to see Blazers and Wizards in the finals? Like, that's not exciting. And there's a whole lot of points to go back and forth, right? I could sit there and talk about the NBA was at its peak when it was Magic and Bird in the finals almost every year, just the Lakers and Celtics. I could make a case the NBA was at its best when Jordan was winning 6 out of 8 titles. I can make another case the NBA was great when the Lakers had their little dynasty run. Like, there's always been these moments in history where there's just a dominant team or a dominant two teams that are constantly there, and the league has thrived and done very well in that situation. I could also make the case, as someone who's primarily a fan of smaller sports markets, that yes, it is frustrating when you see the same two teams, especially when they're powerhouse teams and they win via a way that your team cannot. For all of you people that are going to try to grammar Nazi me right now, I don't care. Via, tomato, whatever. You have two very legitimate cases though, right? And it's, well, where do I draw the line on parity versus non-parity? And I asked this question, and I'm relaying this question to you guys, by the way, because I don't have a definitive answer. So if you can let me know, I would love to hear some feedback and just some general, just general talking points, I guess. That's what we do this for. We do this all for the conversation, so I want to hear your guys' opinions. Does parity in the NFL matter? Well, if you're like me and someone born in the early to mid-90s, we're about to watch one of the more interesting games, I guess you can say, in recent playoff history. Like, if you are born, I'm born in 94. If you're born in 94, 93, 92, up until about 95, 96, means you're about 21 to 25 years old. Did you ever think you would see the Bills and Jaguars in the playoffs? Think about that. Not just that. Did you ever think you would see Jacksonville hosting a playoff game? Now, yes, if you're in my demographic of age, you saw David Garrard have his, 2 years run, and you saw the Jaguars have this momentum building up, which the Patriots promptly just shut down with a swiftness. You had Maurice Jones-Drew and Fred Taylor, and that was kind of cool. But it really didn't last or manifest itself in anything great. The difference between this Jaguars team actually has a bunch of young players. They're bringing in the number one defense. They're bringing in Blake Bortles, who I could actually make the case Blake Bortles isn't all that trash. But that's all. Save that for later. We're also going to have a game with the Chiefs and Titans. Once again, if you are in my age group and you are someone who, did you ever really think the Titans were a powerhouse? Did you ever really think that the Chiefs were a powerhouse? Like, what do we know if you're in my age group, the Chiefs and Titans? Like, we know Vince Young got there, and they had a couple-year run where it was really good with Vince Young. We know Jeff Fisher, who's probably become the most hated former ex-NFL head coach in the league. We have who they had that 2-year window with Chris Johnson and Lendale White, where Chris Johnson was a 2,000-yard rusher and Lendale White was just a monster in the end zone or in the red zone. You don't have a whole lot of overall consistency though. Then you have the Kansas City Chiefs, where if you're once again in my age group, I'm repeating my age group several times because I want that to be very clear. This is simply a conversation and a means of communication for people in my age group. That's why I want to keep stressing this. if you are in my age group, then what do we know the Chiefs for? We know the Chiefs for maybe, you were part of the Damian Hewitt era where they had a couple years. You remember Dante Hall, throw up the X. I'm not going to do it because that might get me in trouble. You have instances like with what was the next one? I was about to say Jamal Charles when he was arguably the best running back in the league. Him and Adrian Peterson. You had Eric Berry and his great comeback story. But we've never thought of these teams as dominant playoff teams. I mean, think about it. Out of all the teams that are currently going to be playing this weekend, so we just had Jaguars, Bills, Chiefs, Titans. In the NFC, we have Saints, Panthers, which the Saints, if you're in my age group, we think of the Saints as a perennial playoff team. Drew Brees, the Hall of Famer, Sean Payton, the great offensive coordinator, when in fact, they've been trashed the past 5 years. So we have the one team we have the perception of, oh, they were great, really hasn't been that great. Carolina, we don't have really fond memories. Like, what do we have to go off of? Jake Delhomme? Yeah, Jake Delhomme. That's my guy. Steve Smith, love Steve Smith, awesome player, but didn't have a whole lot of real success. Like, what do we know the Panthers for? Losing in the Super Bowl, which I'm going to say this right now, and I'm going to peek my microphone saying this. For all of you fuckboys that are like, but the Panthers made it to a Super Bowl. You knew that game was trash. You knew it was. And that's probably like the worst Super Bowl matchup in the last 20 years. So, fuck you, fuckboys. Anyway, that comment might actually get this pulled off of YouTube. Let's find out. You have this. So with the Panthers, we have that mentality of them, right? And then what else do we have? When I get the hair out of my mouth. Who's in the other NFC playoff matchup? We have the Rams and Falcons. The Rams, if you're in my age group, you've seen The Greatest Show on Turf, rewind watching it, and you're like, oh, but then there's this 15 years of just crap piled on crap piled on crap. If you're in my age group, the Falcons are exciting because Michael Vick, holy shit, you had this guy who was a cheat code on Madden, and you had this guy who was just probably the most polarizing player in the league, including the fact of when you get in trouble. And that's pretty much our memory of the Falcons. And now we have 28-3 to think of them by. So we have years of crap, 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 years of crap. Cool memories of Michael Vick. Fun kind of rewind memories of The Greatest Show on Turf. And then we have Drew Brees. It is such an interesting thing, I think, to imagine all these teams and what our perception of them are and what they've actually done, and then base it off of, is it a good weekend for football? Think about it. When we think of good weekends for football, we're thinking of primetime matchups. We're thinking of teams once again, and I'm going to keep reiterating this, and give me a number count. I want to know how many times I actually say this. If you are in my age group, our biggest games have always been Manning versus Brady, the Steelers versus the Ravens. Those have always been the games that we look forward to. Those are the big games. The Cowboys versus, the Cowboys just forced down everyone's throat. And so the Cowboys versus whoever's playing on TV. I remember a game that they tried to hype up that was the Cowboys versus Vikings, and it was Adrian Peterson. It was his rookie year. Maybe it was his second year in the league. And they were trying to make it to be this huge game, and the Vikings were just at 500, but Tony Romo had just signed a new 6-year, $60 million deal, and they were like, oh my gosh, it's the Cowboys. But anyway, that's another point that Skip Bayless will probably argue with me about later, or not. I don't really think he's listening and or watching. But if you are Skip Bayless, fuck you. Another thing, I'm sorry. So I simply want to pass the question on to you. Do you think that it is a good thing or a bad thing for the NFL to have parity? We've already argued the NBA, but do we think the NFL has good parity? And do you think the parity for the NFL is good? Is it good for smaller markets like a Jacksonville and a Buffalo to be in the playoffs? Is it good for a smaller market like a Tennessee to be in the playoffs? The Rams, now that they're in a bigger market but have still kind of been synonymous with crap, is it good that they're now in the playoffs? let me know. I want to hear from you guys. If you saw or heard anything that you liked, please hit that like button. Oh, and also if you are new here, please hit that subscribe button. I want you here. You want to be here. You just don't know it yet. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Or not. I'm not your mom.